Welcome to practice 4 of the series of 10 developmental practices for 8 and under. This practice's theme is the basics of shooting, which we have briefly touched on in practice 2, but will now add new dynamic aspects to the practice. Couple reminders at the beginning. I do suggest 3x3 nets with an 8-foot crease for this age group. We'll be introducing goaltending in this practice. The first drill will run simultaneous to the second and third drills here for about the first 10 minutes of practice, but goaltending will be introduced to a volunteer. We haven't had goaltenders in yet officially. Perhaps you have. If you have, I would suggest rotating your goalie as much as possible and not pigeonholing somebody as the goaltender. But we will be going over the basics of goaltending with whoever is in net this particular practice, and probably in future practices as well, but maybe not this formally. We'll get into a dynamic warm-up, as we'll be doing a lot with the legs. So definitely want to make sure that they're warm, and yeah, focusing on shooting, and there'll be a little bit to do with passing and catching in terms of just a little supplementary follow-up rehashing. So as always, there's 4 phases to a movement. That'll be critical today in terms of seeing where there are gaps in the movement of the shooting mechanics of the player, which I'll get to when we get to shooting here. So of course, finishing up with stretching at the end, but so the big thing here is, in one end, you'll have a coach, preferably one of your more skilled coaches. If you're a coach on your own, you don't have great shooting abilities yourself, perhaps you even want to just throw the balls at the goalie for this drill. But essentially, you're going to hit them with the ball the first couple times, and after that, you're going to start telling them what corner you're going to shoot at, and give about 5 to 10 shots per corner. So yeah, we'll be going through the basic stance of a goalie, how to position themselves, feel for posts, definitely check out the link in the fundamental skill analysis for goaltending here. But yeah, so warming up the goalies, this is, you've got some time with them, so break down any little lessons. Maybe you can even bring some tennis balls to get them used to it. The first couple shots will just be them getting a feel for getting hit with a ball, and you really want to get them in the chest or the leg pads. And that'll be true when we get to players shooting on them for the first time as well. But the players will be busy either in another half, or possibly even leaking into your end, depending on how many players you have. But coaches will first give a demonstration with everybody in tight, usually works best before you send them out. Just going over the triple threat position, which is the lacrosse equivalent of basketball, where you could dribble, pass, or shoot from this position. So for us, it's up over our shoulder, and from here we can pass, shoot, or dodge. And so it's where we want to have our stick, and it's basically the preparatory movement of our shooting mechanics. So and another big piece will be finding the release point, which we usually is by the person's ear if their stick throws properly. Possibly their stick will be hooking down into the ground, and it's a stick issue. But otherwise, if it's going low, they're probably following through. The ball's coming out of their stick further in front of their body, which is going to make it go low. And if it's going high, it's probably sailing out from behind their head, or it's a stick issue as well. So those are things to consider. Hopefully you've got all your stick issues out of the way by this point. Last thing is possibly in the follow through, you'll see people stopping short and not following through on their pass. So couple things to watch for when we do get to shooting. Also, we'll have to know more about this force production piece, and how to take our weight from our back foot to our front foot and rotate our hips and shoulders to get a little bit of extra power. So players are doing that for 4 or 5 minutes themselves, coaches walking around, ideally with extra balls. I always say have 3 balls ready just in case, and you don't want players having to run all the way across the floor to go retrieve their ball on an errant catch. this drill isn't particularly about catching. So, you know, have balls ready to flip them. It's going to be more reps, and we want to have max reps for max participants at this younger age. So any one of those aspects of movements can go wrong. So keep an eye out for which one's the major problem. Is it the preparatory movements? Is it the force production movements? Is it the release point or the critical instant or the follow through? One of those areas. So otherwise, we move into a shuttle against the boards, and usually, you know, this is about as many players as you would want in a shuttle. Even less sometimes is better, but depending on how many coaches you have as well. So definitely want to have a coach ready with balls nearby. And basically, one player is passing it from about 15 meters away. We backed up a little bit from where we were standing previously, throwing the ball ideally to the strong hand or the side of the stick with the player behind them. You don't have to get too much into that. Maybe halfway through the drill, you can tell them about that, but more or less getting them to move their feet a couple steps towards and take a pass against the boards. The player behind them, they want to get their body in front of the ball. That's the lesson here. And this one's a little bit more about catching at this point. And so if they have their hands, if they're approaching the ball with it directly in front of them, that way, if they miss it, it hits them, they can still just scoop it up right there and stay with the play. So yeah, you can make this competitive. You can have, maybe you have upwards of 3-4 of these shuttles spread out across and play, you know, who gets the most consecutive passes, things of that nature for anybody competitive in the group. So that's what you've got there. That should keep us, get our blood going and have us ready for our dynamic warm-up. Players have been briefly introduced to it previously, so any dynamic stretches that they remember, you can ask them and they'll be excited to tell you about what they know, and you can maybe fill in the gaps from there. But next is the players shooting, and so obviously they're going to be a little bit more errant than the coaches for the most part. And so we really want to just tell them, like, hey, warm up the goalie, try to hit the goalie with the first shot. After that, they can shoot away. But here we have them in a semicircle formation. We've done this drill before, but they're on the proper floor side, which they should know by now. And it'll just be one shot, then from left to right, all the way to the other. And the big piece here is teaching them to react back after their shot. So you know, they should know about their crow hop already from the previous practice. You can question them on that, but not too much difference in the footwork or the actual shooting mechanics, but it's the remembering to react out of the drill. So lefts to rights, and you can go rights to lefts. You can have them run all the way to the other end, or you can have them run to the restraining line, which is what I would suggest in this practice, not to tire them out too much because their mechanics will get sloppier in that respect. So, but yeah, so one side to the other, 10 meters away, and then you can bring it in tight. You can bring it in 2 meters away from the goalie, and the goalies, they should be warm. The goalies, by the way, would have done static stretches in this dynamic where the players were doing dynamics. Also, you can see the land acknowledgement. Never forget that. Maybe if you did, you'd have to do it at the end. But you know, we're rehashing on an old skill here, and we're adding one element to it now, which is don't stand and admire your shot. Get back, and basically in a game, you'd be running all the way back to in front of your net, ready to play defense. So that's the idea there. Next, we are gonna get them used more to moving their feet and using the same mechanics, which is this passing on the run. Basically, you're going to have them on their wrong side first, then their proper floor side, second going through. And the reason for that, we would normally always want to be on our proper floor side, but here it's an easier pass to somebody whose stick is leading in front of them and trailing behind them. And so we want to set them up for success here early. That's the idea with this practice, is starting them with the ball in their sticks, That way, you know, they don't have to catch it first and then be able to pass it. So we are introducing that a bit here, however, and with staggered passing, you have one player running, you know, about 5 or 7 steps past the other. Player is relatively stationary, and they're making a pass to this player who catches it ideally and then stops where they are. And then this person runs past them, makes the catch, stops, the other person runs past them. Obviously, in a game, we wouldn't stop, but here we're really trying to stabilize the actions and get them focusing on just basic things here. So catching the ball while running, throwing to a moving target. You're going to need a coach probably near the beginning, near the middle, and near the end. If you don't have enough coaches, you don't need one at the end, but in the middle, anybody who, you know, throws a ball away the first couple passes, coach is right there to give them another one. And the big thing here is give them time. Let the other group almost beat a half before you send the next two. And you know, couple pass attempts on their way down. And if they're smart enough, you can get them to shoot on their proper foresight at the end, or at least direct them to the area they should be shooting from. So yeah, getting a little bit more dynamic now with our footwork. Takes us right into snake shooting, the high variation specifically to start here. And you've got a group of righties, a group of lefties. They'd be doing the same pattern. This diagram shows different, but the first 1 or 2 times through, you would be running north-south towards the net this way. And you could do all the righties, then all the lefties, or you could go righty, lefty each time. But if you do send the whole group at once, usually you go like 2 seconds in between each shot, or you could have a pylon here, and as soon as they hit the pylon, the next person goes, or you can do it on the coach's whistle. But obviously you don't want two people shooting on the goalie at once. We then move it to east-west across the net here, without stopping moving your feet. This diagram is a little further back. It'd probably be an older kid, but around the top of the prime scoring area, which would be a little closer to the net at this age. Then we bring it down to the mid boards. And so coming off the mid boards and then a crease walk in front of the net. So you can see you've got about 15 minutes for this, you know, roughly 3 or 4 minutes per variation. Depending on your group size, it could be anywhere between, you know, 2 and 4 shots from each area. And as always, the theme with these 8-year-old kids is to emphasize fun and play games as much as possible. So here we've been kind of battling lefts versus rights all practice. Maybe you even wove in some competition in snake shooting, games up to 5 and things along that nature. But finishing with breakaway competitions here, and there is a lesson to be learned, which is the banana curl and taking an angle towards the net when you have time on a breakaway, not running straight at the net. And the reason being, well, you can see firstly, this looks like the shape of a banana. It's kind of a gradual curve. It doesn't take, you know, too much time off of, you know, getting to the net as fast as possible, which is the first thing you need to be concerned about on a breakaway. And really you should be teaching breakaways eventually at full speed. But right now we're just concentrating on taking the right path, coming across the net, which gives you so many more options to shoot on the goalie than just coming straight on. So that's the idea there. You can maybe play a 2 out of 3 series, but you also have this shooting relay race at the end. So kind of feel it out. This has 2 variations, both shooting on the run, which is the one I would suggest to get in if you can only do one, but also you could do it with a set shot first. So we've done this drill before with no goalie. Now there's a goalie. So the big thing here for safety's concern is only shoot if the goalie's looking at you. Never shoot if there's somebody in front of you. And so here you're allowed to go grab your rebounds, but if somebody's already squared up with the goalie over here on their shot, you have to wait till that shot's done before you can go to the net. You keep going until you score. So this can turn into a bit of a cardio affair. Who knows how long this game goes? You might want smaller groups for this, maybe break it up in 2 ends. You know, put a coach in net or whatever in the other end. But that's the story there. Again, if you want to do it with a set shot, you could run up, take your set shot from the cone, like plant your feet, crow hop, boom, shoot. Maybe the cone's a little further back even. And then from there, it could be all shots on the run. Or if you really want to challenge an elite player, you can have them basically have to take a set shot from the prime scoring area near where they got the rebound, so closer to the outside. But yeah, finishing, bringing it all into center, talking about static stretching, the importance of stretching, and finishing off with on a high note, something fun, come up with an appropriate word for a cheer. If you can get one of the players to even come up with that word, it can be even more meaningful. But that's it for 8U practice 4, and hopefully you have a blast with that.